getting old for cute. Is that Dad? What's Dad doing?
Cheers. Kentucky Mule. Bourbon, ginger ale, fine. So one thing that I thought we might want to talk about over our cocktails this afternoon is this concept that a very, very good friend of mine, they gave me some advice because basically, you know, everything with this, I had mentioned that, you know, I was like up for a job and I'd had a bunch of interviews and things were looking good, and then it fizzled. No attention span.
I'm multitasking.
No. I was explaining to them like how I felt really unmotivated since that whole lead kind of came up, and then even after it fizzled out, like I didn't really feel motivated to keep applying to find other stuff. We talked a lot about, okay, you know, life and work and how should they, you know, what should the balance be and whatever. But the core piece of advice that they gave me was, don't try and find a job that will fit in with your lifestyle. Like, everything right now is up for grabs. So why don't you instead envision what you want your life to look like, and then think about a job that you can do or a way to make money that goes around that. You know, I've spent so much of my adult life for other people, you know, making money for other people and making enough for me to exist. And I want to make my own decisions for once, and I want to live my life the way I want to live it. I think a big piece of it for me is this idea, like, obviously I don't have a problem going to work. I have for my entire adult life. Ever since I was out of school, I was working full time. But I think the difference is that this whole pandemic, coronavirus, COVID-19 situation has kind of woken a lot of people up. Like, oh, my job can be done from home. I don't have to do that half hour or hour and a half long commute each way to get to my job. We are all now seeing the cracks in the system as it exists. This idea that you have to work a certain number of hours a week to earn a certain salary. It's not based on how much work you accomplish, it's based on how much time you spend. And the conception of how well you are performing and how dedicated you are has to do with how little time you take off, like how little time you take as sick leave, how little time you take as vacation. If you take your full allotment, somehow you're perceived as lazy, or not committed.
Right, if you use your benefits that were part of the... if you use the benefits that were part of the reason that you took the job.
And then there's another layer on top of that, which is like, we are blessed to have had or have the opportunity to work places where we can actually have paid time off. A lot of people don't ever take any time off because they financially can't. They can't miss a day of work.
Yeah, they might get the time, they might be able to take time off, but they don't get paid for that.
Right.
Any minute you take off is a minute you're unpaid.
So, I mean, basically, and then this concept of unskilled labor. I mean, like, come on. Basically all of the jobs that aren't executive or in healthcare that are still working right now are all technically like unskilled labor. So like people in grocery stores and stuff like that.
Well, this has been said many times by much more intelligent people, but as soon as the pandemic happened, the phrase, the same people who were referred to as unskilled labor are now referred to as essential workers.
Yep.
Because people who own big corporations, or, I mean, not necessarily, I mean, definitely including Jeff Bezos, but like, you know, just corporate people, they don't actually do anything that's essential to, they might do things that are essential to companies making money, but what they do isn't essential to people surviving. But food delivery, maybe you don't have to be a brain surgeon to do food delivery, but it is essential to survival in a situation where some people cannot safely go get food.
Yeah.
So, you know, unskilled labor became essential worker real quick as soon as people decided, well, in order for this economy to keep going, we must force these people to continue working even though it's dangerous.
Well, but there's also like this there's a stigma specifically in our culture. I don't know that it persists outside of the United States necessarily. Maybe it is capitalism in general. Oh my god, there's a wasp. Oh boy. Ah! Nope.
Normally with stuff like wasps, you go, oh, they're more afraid of you than you are of them. In her case, that's not true.
It's like over by the tire. I'm just waiting for it to go away. It won't leave.
Like a wasp would have to be really, really afraid of Olivia in order for it to be more afraid of her than she was of Nick.
Make it go. Why?
Like, I don't think it's gonna do anything.
Where's the spray? Can we spray it?
Is it still there?
Yeah, it's like hanging up by the front door.
Dude, it's not gonna
And
do
now
anything.
it's on the tire. It came back over.
It's not gonna do anything. Besides, I don't even think that's a wasp. I don't
It
even
is
think
a
that thing has
wasp.
a stinger.
It's a paper wasp.
Isn't that a wood,
No.
like a drill bee or whatever they're called?
No, it's not a carpenter bee. It's definitely some sort of wasp. I don't know if it stings or not, but I'm not going to take that chance. Anyway, now you know my biggest fear is flying, stinging insects. I don't kill bees. I know how essential bees are.
Bees, not these assholes.
Right, but I still, like, avoid them at every chance I can.
Wasps don't pollinate shit, buddy.
Actually, they do. Figs.
Oh, they do? Well, who
Figs.
cares about figs? I don't care
I
about
think a lot of people care about figs.
I don't-
But anyway, before the wasp, and if the wasp comes back, I'm sorry for
Talk about essential workers.
bees. No, I what I want to circle back around to is this idea that, like, there's a stigma in specifically U.S. culture, maybe other cultures, but this idea that if you don't require special training, a college degree, a certain amount of experience or knowledge or expertise or credentials, that you are not owed a specific amount of money for your labor.
Well, and you're also not owed any kind of decent standard of living.
Right.
Because since social services are just so pathetic in the USA, you gotta pay for them out of pocket. So if you want to have good social services as a U.S. American, every single one of those social services that you want to partake in is something that you're gonna have to pay for, which means every one of those things you want to partake in requires you to earn more money in order to have it. So, I mean, that's everything from healthcare to education to...
No!
In a lot of places, even just going to a park or something like that. So, I mean, if you...
I'm here, I'm watching it, it's just hanging out. There it is.
So that whole idea that, you know, only certain levels of training deserve a decent salary, you could extrapolate that to only certain levels of training and only certain salaries deserve essential social services. Since in this country you have to pay for those out of pocket.
I don't see it anymore.
Because they're not paid through via taxation like literally every other developed country on Earth.
Okay, it just flew that way. Let's hope it stays over there.
And some undeveloped countries.
I'm mad about this wasp situation. Anyway, but this is all contextual. Really what I wanted to talk about is this idea of because of the way that I've been brought up and the society that we live in, I lost my job. We are a 2-income household, and that means that I need to find another source of income as soon as possible. But now that I have been freed for a good portion of this year from having to commute to and from a physical job, from, having to work an amount of time that is not relevant to my productivity, like I'm able to get stuff done in 3 hours, then that's all I should take, all the time that I should be spending on it, and not just sitting there or trying to come up with something else to do to fill the time to be productive, to like meet some sort of, moving target and non-specific like expectation. So now I've been awakened and I know what it's like to live without those restraints. And
well, you know what's really funny about that?
And I'm finding it really, really hard to be motivated to try and get myself back into that habit, into that system, because I've realized that it's just like not necessary.
A lot of people believe that jobs are, well, you should just try as hard as you can. You should just put in as much work as you can. You should try to stand out, try to rise above the pack, try to be a go-getter, try to like really kick ass at your job. Just do everything that you can for the job that you have. Try to excel, because what's the point of working there if you're not going to try to do your best? Fine, that's all well and good. But the problem that I have with that is that's not how compensation works. Compensation, there's no reason to go above and beyond when the compensation doesn't go above and beyond. You, regardless of how seriously you take the job, regardless of how much effort you put in, and regardless of how much you stand out when it's compared to your colleagues or even your bosses, your compensation is the same regardless. So really, if anything, you're disincentivized to go above and beyond because all the extra work that you do is wasted. As one of my teachers used to put it, you can never work harder than being friends with the boss.
So true.
And you can never outwork the boss not liking you.
Yes. I mean, it's part of my personality to want to go and do really well at like whatever I'm doing. So there's like a part of me that's programmed to do that. But once that, veneer of we value you, we think you're talented, we appreciate the work you're doing, and we recognize that you're an asset, if that is not communicated regularly, then your will and desire to actually perform well and do anything for them beyond what is necessary evaporates. And that's not my fault. That's not anybody's fault.
A lot of the ways that the good bosses out there, they do communicate that, but their communication of that is verbal and it doesn't have any material. It doesn't have any material cohort. So.
But if that exists, at least there is some incentive for certain personality types. But when we're talking sociologically, when we're talking about an entire culture, an entire people, that is not going to work for everybody. So, we have people wasting time making very little money in comparison with their productivity, because if you look at any graph and any study of productivity in the United States, it has gone way up, even though wages have stayed stagnant or even gone down if you count in inflation.
Yeah, and this is something, anybody can look this up. It's not a political thing and it's not like a conspiracy theory thing. It's just anyone can. Forbes is a right-wing publication. You can look at that. The Economist is a right-wing publication. You can look at that. I just bring up right-wing publications because I'm lefty and I still read those just to see what's up. But productivity since the late 70s, since like 1978 or 9, has gone up like 500%. Like the average worker produces 5 times as much as they used to. And when adjusted for inflation, wages have actually gone slightly down. So whatever you were making in 1979, if there are people out there that are like around 45 or so, whatever you're making in 1979, are you making 5 times as much now? No, you're not. No, you're not. But you're working 5 times as hard. So there is no relationship between how hard you work and how well you're compensated. They're unrelated.
But I think this is all anecdotal in supporting our own journeys. Like, if you want to know this information, you can look it up. If you don't believe this information, that's fine, because the real message is I want to find a way to continue to do this stuff that I love, creating, building, working with my hands, and being able to literally see I made something and it has an impact, instead of, I've seen these numbers on this chart go up and sales went up and that's great, but does that impact me, my compensation, my job satisfaction, my performance reviews? Like, no. I guess the point is, when I think about what I would love my life to be like in a year from now, it's like, I want to be traveling and exploring and being creative, and also living a lifestyle that is more enriching, fulfilling, and natural. And whether that's here in Florida or whether that's in Canada, that remains to be seen. And COVID-19 plays a whole other layer of roles in what ends up happening. But I think that Vanny is like a step toward that, and it was like an unintentional step. It was I see this thing, I think it's really cool, I want to be a part of it, and it also meets some needs if the apocalypse actually is happening. And then it became this whole world opening thing where now I'm like, the possibilities for my life don't have to fit into this suburban box.
Well, every time you do something weird that most people don't do, you're like, well, I wonder what other things are that most people don't do that I could do. Like, it's not like one of those, in this whole van thing, it's not like a bunch of people were telling us don't do this, and we were like, screw you, we're going to go our own way and do it anyway. It was never even brought up. Nobody in my entire, I'm almost 36 years old now, nobody in my entire life has ever even brought this up as an option for living. It turns out there's a whole community around it, but it's not like we're rebelling or whatever. It's like we're just aware of an option that nobody ever talks about and it never comes up. So who knows what other things there are like that out there, job-wise, life, happiness-wise.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that has been like the true awakening that this van has kind of brought forth, is this idea that for millennials, we have been taught a formula for adulting. So you get to a certain age, you accumulate a certain amount of knowledge, credentials, whatever, you get a steady job, you do blah, blah, blah. If you are in a traditional heterosexual relationship, maybe the wife takes time off of work to do child rearing. There's all of these very archetypal roles that still exist in society, and the expectation is that to some extent you buy into that and you play those roles, and that is how you live a successful adult life, by being financially stable and being gainfully employed. But I've realized that adulting doesn't mean that I have to follow that formula. I can be an adult and I can live my life in a way I want to live. It does not have to look like what everybody says is apparently the way it's supposed to be.
Well, especially, and the thing is you can sit there and you can say, okay, well, maybe you think that, but all these other people do it. So, who are you to say that they're wrong to do what they're doing? Who are you to say that you know any better?
Well,
okay, here's the thing. You have to consider that this prescription for how to live a functional adult life is very different from how people in every other country in the world live a functional adult life. There's 200 countries in the world, and the USA is the only one that acts like the USA. There are some similarities between other countries, but The USA has 4% of the global population in it. 4%. Maybe the other 96% have input that might be useful to me in my search for, like, what should I do? You know?
And how do I want to live
4%.
Yeah. So that's where I'm at right now. Like, Vanny is taking shape, obviously. We've got all this color, and we've got walls, and we've got all of these things coming together, but it's only one piece of the puzzle. Like, we've talked about it as being a vehicle to get us from our lives here in Florida, eventually to Canada in some...
Literally.
Yeah, in some, you know, nondescript timeline. But I think the point is, we created this vehicle to achieve a certain goal, but throughout dealing with COVID-19 and throughout building this vehicle, doing the research we've been doing, and having literally the space in our lives to sit back and think about things and look at our lives and our lifestyle almost like from a third person point of view, and to say, there are things about this I don't like, and I think I'm a healthier person even though I'm unemployed. Like, that's a huge, huge revelation. And I mean, I'm somebody who really has been extremely career driven to this point. So for me to say that means that the lack of fulfillment and the you know, constant just grind part of our culture has burnt me out. And that I need to find some other way to exist so that I'm happy and healthy, but also not destitute. There's gotta be some sort of middle ground. Like, it can't be you are a full-time worker and you live in a house or an apartment and you're financially stable and you're successful. Or you don't have a job, or you don't have a well-paying job, or blah, 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 and so therefore you are not successful.
Well, right now there's plenty of people who are unemployed and they're becoming destitute, and there are also plenty of people who work full-time and are becoming destitute. So, like, that should tell you right there that it's kind of a false choice. I mean, you could work all the time and still be poor as f***. There are probably a lot of people that won't agree with some of the stuff that we're saying, especially as pertains to the relationship between work and success. Like, you can work really hard and not have success. You can work really hard and not advance in your job. You can work really hard and not get compensated well. You can have a job and not really have benefits. You can be a very productive member of society and be employed, have a 2-income household, and still not really be able to afford basic necessities or be able to afford to travel or anything. Okay, yep, I understand how it doesn't make sense to some people. However, I think that a lot of those people probably had their careers coming together at a time when what we're saying right now was not the case. We're in a time right now that is different from the previous time, and those people were living in a time that was different from their parents' time. And before you sit there and say, now wait a second here, hard work is its own reward. Hard work is how you advance in the workplace. Okay, just look up some factual information about this from nowadays, not your experience. If you're 45 or 50 or older, not your experience from working. Look up a little bit of statistics related to the relationship between productivity and income gains, or the relationship between the generation you were born in and how much savings or wealth you have now. Things have changed. There are a lot of things that are changing. And I'm sure that you know, the upcoming generation is going to have lots of things to complain about how we handled this time in life, you know. But, you know, if you find yourself disagreeing with this my opinions on the relationship between hard work and compensation, they're not really opinions. First of all, they're very much based on statistical fact, and also things are different now. It's been you know, 30 years since you were in the workforce,
Or starting your career.
yeah, and things are very different.
It's extremely different. Like, I think that there is really a hard time for people that were born before the mid-'80s. Like, they just don't have a concept of what the world, the workplace, the economy, what it's like for younger people now. Like, it literally, like, you are told from birth that you are living this American dream, and that if you do X, Y, and Z, that you will be successful. And there are generations of Americans where that was true.
Yeah.
It's just not true anymore.
I mean, this is just a very non-political, non-interpretive, non-opinion-y couple of facts. The cost of education has risen faster than wages.
I have a graph for that if you want to see it.
That's just a fact. The cost of housing has risen faster than wages. Just a fact. The cost of having children. And you can go on and on, name all these things. There's another one, which we already talked about. Productivity has risen faster than wages, which means not only are you getting less for your money, but you're also working harder for that money that gets you less for your money. Now, those are just some factual things. And whenever the price of something rises faster than wages do, that means that every consecutive year that passes, it's harder than the year before. So if you're starting your career 20 or 30 years later, after these people who are saying that millennials just complain all the time, we just objectively, mathematically have it harder, and the forthcoming generation will have it even harder if trends continue.
But
their kids will have it even harder.
But here's one thing. Let's say you are listening to us, and we do come off as complaining millennials. We get that. Like, we understand that no matter how many facts we spew out, and no matter how much research we show, and whatever, the attitude behind not wanting to exist this way is seen as un-American or lazy. And you know what? That's your prerogative. But I think one thing that I just want to, like, kind of say is, okay, we tried, both of us, through our teen years and our adult years, to be active in our communities and in our local governments and in, national politics.
Still are.
In order to try and effect change. And we realized that it's just not possible. So, or at least it's not possible on the scale that we need right now.
Within our lifetime.
And so we have decided, okay, well, if things can't be the way that we want them to be, then we need to make some changes. Which is why we're doing this radical thing of deciding to, like, leave the country and live in a van for a while and, trek thousands and thousands of miles to find a better life. Like, we're literally doing what generations of immigrants have done before us, just in a radically different way.
We're leaving harsh circumstances to get a better life in a country that has their shit together.
So if you're looking at us and you're saying we're whiny millennials and we're doing really weird stuff, well, actually what we're doing is making our own lives the way we want them. We're taking
being
control.
Proactive and solving our problems.
Yeah, we're taking control of our adult lives while we have the capability to do that. So
by
that
ourselves.
so that we can live the life we want to live. Like, if that's not American, if that's not noble, if that's not somehow aspirational, or, you don't see that as a positive influence, then that's on you.
Well, and also the un-American attitude of, like, wanting to leave the USA or whatever. It's like, there are a lot of countries in the world, and maybe being un-American isn't such an insult that you think it is, because the planet Earth in general doesn't view America as the default lens through which to view everything. So maybe just consider, like, well, it's un-American to, well, we're going to another country though, so there are a lot of other countries.
There is a real strong cultural element to being born and raised or emigrating to the United States. There is this concept that if you are not 100% in support of America in every way, then you are unpatriotic and you are a bad American. And we don't think that, but we also don't think that America is the greatest country. And objectively, when you look at statistics, it's not. It's failing in a lot of ways. It's way below a lot of other developed countries in like dozens of really critical benchmarks.
You gotta say, okay, best country by what metric?
Yeah.
What is the thing that you really like that makes it the best? What is it? So then if I go, okay, but this country has more of that, well, I guess that's the end of the conversation, isn't it? Well, we have freedom. Yeah, but here are all the ways in which other countries have more freedom. Okay.
Patriotism is not a judgment of your moral character, nor is it a judgment of your ethical system, your religious beliefs, anything else. It's literally, do you identify with this country and this group of people or not? And frankly, the way America talks about America these days, we don't. We're not proud patriots. Sorry.
It's like if you ran a restaurant and somebody came in every day and was just about the food and complaining about the service and they kept coming back, it's like, why do you keep coming back here and bothering me? Go somewhere else that makes sense for what you want. Okay, we will.
There will always be this circular argument of, oh, well, if you care, then you'll stay and you'll fix it and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, we have done what we believe is our due diligence. We have done years of research. We have performed years of activism. And we have decided that the best way for us to achieve what we want in life is to get out of here.
So your friend was talking about, instead of trying to figure out what job you want and then build your life around that, figure out what type of life you want, and then get a job that fits in with that, which makes total sense, because like I was saying before, if you're spending most of your time at work, then your whole problem is, well, I want my life to be better around work, and like I don't want work to dominate my life. Well, then you should consider what kind of life you want first, and then get the job according to that. So, you know, and you said, well, I want time to create, I want time to travel, I want da-da-da-da-da. All these things, basically, if I'm just going to look at this in a very simplistic black and white way, all of the things that you said you want require more time off and more income. So basically what that means, and you know, who doesn't want to have a job where they do less work and make more money? But we gotta get into a situation where we are compensated fairly for our work, where we have more time off, and or where the things that we want to participate in aren't as expensive.
Well, and also radically reducing our expenses for a period of time by moving into the van, by living in the van for even as transitional housing for a couple of months. That's still a couple of months where we have not paid rent or a mortgage. We have not paid an electric bill. We haven't paid a water bill. Like, we have other bills, we'll have our cell phone, but that's not the same. Like, those bills add up, but like, they're not the bulk.
The only two ways to not have rent to pay or to not have a mortgage to pay, there's really only two things. Don't have a house that you rent in or that you own, or get rich enough to buy the thing and not have to make payments on it anymore. Which that second way is something that the vast majority of people on this planet cannot do. Yeah.
Like,
especially Americans. I mean, Americans don't own anything. They don't own their cars, they don't own their homes, they don't own their educational degrees.
Nope, everything's in debt. Everything's indebted.
So, you know, like, since we're never going to be able to do that probably, the other way to not pay mortgages, don't have a house that you got to pay a mortgage on. And don't have a house that you got to pay rent at.
And also, like, who doesn't have the dream of creating their own living space from the ground up? Like, I don't know anybody who says, like, oh, if I had the opportunity to build my own house exactly the way I want it, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah. Or have somebody else build it.
Yeah. Like, everybody wants their living quarters to, you know, suit them. And creative people absolutely love doing these kind of things. So, like, this is our opportunity to literally build our own house.
And get rid of a lot of stuff too. Get rid of a lot of expenses. Get rid of vehicles. Get rid of dwellings. Get rid of possessions. Get rid of bills, expenses, anchors. Weights that weigh you down to one place. Not that I want to be totally rootless and just go all over the place and never have like a home base. But
yeah, like I know a lot of van dwellers are nomadic, and I'm
not really into that.
That's not really. I mean, who knows? Maybe we'll get into the van and we'll feel very differently about it.
Yeah.
But as of right now, we see it more as a means to an end than we do like a lifestyle that we want to maintain forever. The lifestyle that we want to maintain is what we will achieve after having built, living in, driven the van to another country and then getting settled there.
Yeah. And there's also a possibility that we'll get in the van and go, oh, we've made a huge mistake. We should have done this,
Big fear.
Could happen. Not there yet, but just saying that, we know that, we don't have this 100% definitely for sure planned out.
Nope.
It's possible it'll all go haywire, but that's the thing, you never know
risks.
anything for sure, so...
and we've played it safe a lot.
Well, there's this saying that's if you don't ask, the answer's always no. So will a thing work out? Well, if you don't try it, the answer is always no. So
we're gonna give it a try.
If you fail at something, that means you attempt at it at least. So, and the other thing is too, is we might fail in terms of exactly how great and awesome it is, but we're not gonna fail on the basic premise of it, which is jettison a bunch of crap that we don't need and use this as an opportunity to go get where we do want to be. And we don't really want to be nomads, but we want to travel more, and we want to at least adventure to somewhere that we think would be more suitable as a semi-permanent home base, or a permanent home base, depending on how much we like it when we get there.
But I guess we can wrap this up by saying, aside from wear a mask, practice social distancing, wash your hands, make your life the way you want it. Even if it seems really radical and weird to everybody around, if you have the capacity...
Well, they don't have to live your life.
If you have the capacity to make positive changes, even if it goes against everything that anybody has ever said was a good idea, then why not? Now is the time to take risks. Everything's up in the air. Why not? What do you have to lose?
The only way to not fail is to never try. If you never ask, the answer's always no. And not just make your life what you want, but since life is more important than work, find out what kind of life you want and then make work go around that, if you can.
Thank you for sitting down and drinking with us this afternoon. We will catch you on the next one. Be safe. We love you, Vanny fans. Bye.
Black Lives Matter.